Listen, every single day you wake up, you're given a gift. It's called time. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people throw it away. Scrolling, complaining, waiting for the right moment. You keep saying you'll start tomorrow, but tomorrow has no guarantee. Time is the one resource you can never get back. You can lose money and make it again. You can lose opportunities and find new ones. But once a moment passes, it's gone forever. Every second that ticks by is a second of your life you'll never experience again. People often talk about saving time, but you can't actually save it. You can only spend it. And the way you choose to spend it determines the quality of your life and the opportunities you'll have in the future. The problem is, most people act like time is unlimited. They waste hours scrolling through social media, binge-watching shows, or overthinking what they should do next, all while telling themselves they'll get serious later. But later is an illusion. It's a comfortable excuse to delay action and avoid discomfort. The truth is, the people who achieve their goals and create meaningful lives are not the ones who have more time. They're the ones who use the time they have with purpose. Think about the hours you spend in a single week. If you track them, you'll be shocked at how much time slips through your fingers without you even noticing. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. It doesn't seem like much in the moment, but it adds up to days over the course of a year. Those days could have been invested in learning a skill, building a business, strengthening your health, or deepening your relationships. Instead, they vanish into activities that leave you no closer to the life you want. And then people wonder why they feel stuck. They're not stuck because life is unfair. They're stuck because they've been giving their time away to things that don't matter. Every goal you've ever dreamed about, every version of yourself you've imagined, exists on the other side of how you manage your time today. If you spend it carelessly, you'll wake up years from now realizing you're no closer to the life you wanted. If you spend it wisely, even small actions taken daily will compound into massive results. Time is like a currency, but unlike money, everyone gets the same daily allowance, 24 hours. The difference between people who succeed and people who don't is how they choose to invest it. Some people treat their hours like gold, protecting them from distractions and using them to work toward their priorities. Others give them away freely to anyone or anything that asks for their attention. The harsh truth is that you are either the master of your time or its victim. The clock doesn't care if you're tired, busy, or not in the mood. It keeps moving forward whether you're using it well or not. And while it's tempting to think you have plenty of time to do everything you want, life has a way of passing by faster than you expect. Months turn into years. And before you realize it, you're looking back wondering where all the time went. Every choice you delay today has a direct cost on the life you'll live tomorrow. Your future self is not some abstract idea. It's the real you, just further along the timeline. Every time you decide to push a task to later, every time you convince yourself that you'll start tomorrow, you are quietly handing over opportunities, growth, and progress that your future self desperately needs. It's like having a savings account for your life's success, but instead of depositing effort, discipline, and action into it each day, you keep withdrawing with procrastination, distractions, and avoidance. Eventually, that account runs dry, and when you reach for the results you wanted, there's nothing there. The cost of delay is rarely felt in the moment. That's what makes it so dangerous. Skipping one workout doesn't make you unfit immediately. Postponing one important call doesn't destroy your career instantly. Choosing to waste an afternoon doesn't ruin your life that day. But the impact compounds over time. Every delay becomes part of a pattern, and that pattern shapes the person you become. A week of delay turns into a month, then into years of unfulfilled potential. You may not notice the difference now, but your future self will feel it in every missed opportunity, every unrealized dream, and every regret about the time that could have been used better. When you delay action, you're not just pausing progress. You're often creating more work for your future self. Tasks pile up, problems grow. Skills you could have learned early now take longer because you waited. The longer you put something off, the more intimidating it feels and the harder it becomes to start. What might have been a small, manageable step turns into a massive obstacle simply because you let time pass without acting. That's the hidden cost that most people don't think about until it's too late. There's Al. So, an emotional cost to delay. Every time you put off something you know you should do, you're sending yourself a subtle message that you can't be trusted to follow through. That erodes self-confidence and builds a habit of avoidance. Over time, this creates a mental block. You start associating important tasks, with stress, guilt, and anxiety, which makes you even less likely to start them. Your future self is then left not only with unfinished goals, but also with a weakened belief in their own ability to achieve anything. The truth is, the time you have today is your most powerful tool for building the life you want. But once today becomes yesterday, you can't get it back. The opportunities that are within your reach right now may not be there tomorrow. Delay is expensive, and the price is paid not with money, but with pieces of your potential. Every hour you waste now is an hour your future self doesn't get to use. The version of you who could be stronger, wealthier, wiser, or happier is being starved of the very fuel they need, your action in the present moment. The perfect moment is one of the most convincing illusions the mind creates. People tell themselves they'll start when they have more time, more money, more clarity, or more motivation. They wait for life to line up in such a way that there are no distractions, no risks, and no uncertainties. But life doesn't work like that. There will always be something unfinished, some problem to solve, or some challenge in your way. Waiting for everything to feel right before you take action is just another way of postponing progress. The conditions you think you need are often the very things that develop only after you've started. Opportunities don't sit still while you wait for the right timing. They appear, and if you're not ready to move, they disappear. The most successful people are not the ones who had the perfect setup. They are the ones who moved forward despite imperfections. They understood that clarity is built through action, not before it. They didn't wait for the fear to go away or for the path to be completely visible. They took a step, then another, and shaped their journey as they went. If you keep waiting for the perfect moment, you'll find yourself stuck in a cycle of preparation without execution. You'll keep telling yourself that you're almost ready while time keeps passing. The truth is, life is a constant mix of challenges and opportunities. There will never be a point when all the traffic lights turn green at the same time for you to start your dream, change your habit, or take the risk you've been thinking about. Perfection is not the prerequisite for starting, it's the result of starting and improving along the way. The more time you spend waiting for ideal conditions, the more momentum you lose, and momentum is one of the most powerful forces in creating change. Without it, even the smallest step feels heavy. Fear often hides behind the idea of waiting for the perfect time. It feels safer to tell yourself you're not ready yet than to face the uncertainty of taking action. But in reality, the only way to become ready is to begin. Every skill, habit, and level of confidence you think you need beforehand is actually developed in the process. If you keep delaying until everything feels perfect, you'll miss the countless chances that were available if you had simply acted with what you had. Time has no pause button. While you wait for things to align, life is still moving forward, and so are the people who decided to start without waiting. They're learning, adjusting, and getting closer to their goals, while you're still standing at the starting line. The difference between someone who succeeds and someone who doesn't is rarely about resources or timing. It's about the willingness to begin before you feel ready. The perfect moment you're waiting for doesn't exist in the future. It's created in the present by taking the first step right now. Small actions may seem insignificant in the moment, but they are the quiet architects of massive change over time. People often underestimate the power of doing a little bit every single day because they're focused on dramatic transformations. They want to see big results instantly, so when progress feels slow, they lose interest or give up. But the truth is, consistent small steps compound into results that are impossible to ignore. A single push-up doesn't make you fit. Reading a few pages doesn't make you an expert, and saving a few dollars doesn't make you wealthy. Yet when those small actions are repeated day after day, they build momentum and create lasting change that no single big effort could achieve on its own. The challenge is that small actions don't usually deliver immediate gratification. The changes are subtle, sometimes invisible, and because of that, they're easy to dismiss. This is why so many people abandon their efforts too early. They don't trust the process. They forget that a river carves through rock not by force, but by persistence. The same principle applies to personal growth, skill development, health, and every other meaningful goal. The compound effect works quietly at first, then explosively later, but only for those who stick with it long enough to see the payoff. Small actions are powerful because they're sustainable. Big, drastic changes often demand so much energy and willpower that they're impossible to maintain. You might feel motivated to overhaul your entire life in 1 week, but that kind of intensity is rarely sustainable for months or years. On the other hand, taking one manageable step at a time doesn't overwhelm you. It builds habits, and habits create long-term change without relying on fleeting bursts of motivation. A small daily action becomes part of who you are, and once it's automatic, it doesn't require effort to maintain. Another reason small actions matter is that they create momentum. Getting started is often the hardest part, but once you take that first small step, it becomes easier to take the next one. You might start by walking for 10 minutes a day, then naturally increase to 20, then to running. You might begin by writing for 5 minutes each morning, which eventually grows into completing a book. The progress is so gradual that it doesn't feel overwhelming, but over time, it's transformative. Every massive achievement you see in others is built on countless small, invisible actions. The successful entrepreneur didn't just wake up with a thriving business. They spent years making phone calls, sending emails, solving problems, and showing up even when they didn't feel like it. The athlete you admire didn't just appear at the championship. They trained for hours every day, refining their skills one small improvement at a time. It's easy to romanticize the end result, but the foundation of every success story is built from the small, often boring, consistent actions that most people overlook. Waiting is the silent killer of dreams. People convince themselves that they're just pausing for a valid reason, telling themselves they need more clarity, more resources, or a better plan before they begin. But the truth is, waiting becomes a habit, and that habit can consume years without you even realizing it. Every day you hesitate, the gap between where you are and where you want to be grows wider. Life doesn't stop moving while you stall. Opportunities shift, doors close, and momentum fades. The longer you wait, the heavier the starting point feels, as if the very act of doing nothing adds invisible weight to your goals. Starting, on the other hand, has an energy of its own. It doesn't require you to have the entire path mapped out. It doesn't demand perfection. It just requires a decision. The choice to move forward even if the steps are small or uncertain. The moment you start, you create momentum. That momentum might feel slow at first, but it's infinitely more powerful than the stagnant energy of waiting. It breaks the mental pattern of hesitation and proves to yourself that action is possible right now. The danger of waiting is that it often hides behind rational-sounding excuses. You tell yourself you're preparing, but preparation without action becomes procrastination in disguise. You tell yourself you're being patient, but patience is only valuable when it's paired with consistent effort. You tell yourself you're not ready, but readiness is a myth. Skills, confidence, and clarity are built through doing, not before doing. Your habits are the invisible framework that builds your life. They operate quietly in the background, shaping your days, influencing your choices, and determining the results you see over time. Most people underestimate their power because habits feel small and ordinary, but when repeated consistently, they form the foundation of everything you achieve or fail to achieve. The way you spend your mornings, the way you handle challenges, the way you respond to stress, even the way you talk to yourself, all of these are habits. They are automatic behaviors you've trained into yourself, and they dictate whether you're moving toward your goals or drifting further away. What makes habits so powerful is their cumulative effect. A single choice to eat unhealthy food doesn't ruin your health, but repeated daily, it creates problems over time. A single decision to save a little money doesn't make you wealthy, but repeated regularly, it builds financial security. Habits compound, whether they are good or bad, and the results are not immediately visible. That's why they're so dangerous when left unchecked. You can live for months or even years without realizing how deeply your habits are carving your future. Every person lives under the influence of two types of habits, empowering ones and destructive ones. Empowering habits push you closer to growth. They include reading, exercising, setting goals, and practicing discipline. Destructive habits pull you backward. They include procrastination, negative self-talk, wasting time, and giving into distractions. The difference between people who thrive and people who feel stuck often comes down to which set of habits dominates their daily life. Success is not usually the result of one giant leap, but the outcome of consistently practicing small, positive habits over time. Habits also shape identity. When you repeat an action long enough, it stops being something you do and becomes part of who you are. If you consistently write, you begin to see yourself as a writer. If you consistently exercise, you begin to see yourself as someone who takes care of their health. This shift in identity is powerful because once something becomes part of your identity, it requires less effort to maintain. You no longer need to convince yourself to act. You act because it's who you are. The environment you create around yourself either supports or sabotages your habits. If your phone is always within reach, distractions will dominate. If you surround yourself with people who prioritize growth, discipline, and resilience, your own habits will naturally align with theirs. Habits thrive on cues, and by controlling those cues, you gain control over the actions that follow. This is why changing your environment is often just as important as changing your mindset. Ultimately, habits don't just influence what you do today, they determine what your future looks like. They are the invisible threads weaving together the story of your life. The person you are becoming is not defined by what you say you want, but by what you repeatedly do without even thinking. Procrastination feels harmless in the moment, but it is one of the most destructive forms of self-sabotage. It disguises itself as relief, giving you temporary comfort by letting you avoid the discomfort of action. You tell yourself you'll get to it later, you'll have more energy tomorrow, or you'll be more focused when the timing feels right. But every time you delay, you're not just postponing a task, you're actively choosing to undermine your own progress. Procrastination is not an external force. It's an internal habit of avoiding the very things that would move your life forward. The cost of procrastination is not just the missed deadlines or incomplete goals, it's the erosion of self-trust. Each time you break a promise to yourself by saying you'll do something and then avoiding it, you weaken the belief that you are capable of following through. Over time, this creates a cycle of guilt, stress, and lowered confidence. The unfinished tasks hover in the background, draining mental energy and creating anxiety. What started as a small delay becomes an emotional burden, and the weight of that burden keeps you even more stuck. Procrastination also magnifies the size of the task in your mind. The longer you put something off, the more intimidating it becomes. A simple email feels like a huge project, a short workout feels exhausting, and a small decision feels overwhelming. By avoiding the discomfort once, you teach your brain that avoidance is a way to escape pressure, and this reinforces the cycle. The task doesn't disappear. It grows into a mental monster, and when you finally face it, it requires more energy than it ever should have. On the surface, procrastination looks like laziness, but it's often rooted in fear. Fear of failure, fear of imperfection, fear of judgment. By delaying, you give yourself the illusion of control, as if waiting will make the fear go away. But waiting never removes fear, it only deepens it. Action is the only way to shrink fear, and procrastination is the exact opposite of action. By avoiding the work, you keep feeding the fear, making it stronger than it ever was. The cruelest part of procrastination is the time it steals. Hours, days, weeks slip away while you're stuck in avoidance, and when you finally look back, you realize how much potential has been wasted. The opportunities you could have taken, the skills you could have learned, the progress you could have made, all of it lost to hesitation. Time doesn't pause while you procrastinate. It keeps moving forward, leaving you behind. What seems like a small delay now often becomes the very reason your future self feels unprepared, unfulfilled, and regretful. Procrastination may seem like comfort in the short term, but in reality, it is a silent form of self-betrayal. It is you standing in your own way, holding yourself back from the life you claim you want. Fear is one of the biggest thieves of time because it convinces you to stand still while life keeps moving. It whispers excuses that sound reasonable. Wait until you're ready, play it safe, don't risk embarrassment, don't try unless you're certain you'll succeed. Those excuses feel protective, but in reality, they trap you in inaction. Fear wastes more time than failure ever could because failure at least teaches you something, gives you experience, and moves you forward. Fear gives you nothing but regret. When you let fear decide for you, you don't just lose minutes or hours, you lose opportunities. The business idea you keep overthinking could have been started months ago. The conversation you avoid could have opened new doors. The skill you're afraid of failing at could already be mastered by now. Fear convinces you that waiting is safer, but waiting only guarantees that you'll stay exactly where you are. While others are learning, building, and progressing, fear keeps you watching from the sidelines, imagining what might go wrong instead of discovering what could go right. Failure, on the other hand, is a forward motion. Even when you get it wrong, you're moving, you're learning, and you're building resilience. Fear blocks that process entirely. It stops the first step, which means you never give yourself the chance to grow. That's why fear is more dangerous than failure. It steals the possibility of progress before it even begins. You can recover from mistakes, you can pivot, you can adapt, but you can't recover the time lost to fear-driven hesitation. Fear also has a way of disguising itself as logic. You might call it caution, planning, or being realistic, but deep down, you know when it's fear speaking. It's the hesitation that shows up every time you're about to stretch beyond your comfort zone. It's the voice that magnifies risks while ignoring potential rewards. And the longer you listen to it, the more powerful it becomes. Soon, even small steps start to feel like impossible leaps. The irony is that fear grows bigger the more you avoid it. Every time you let it win, you reinforce the belief that you're not capable. A task that would have been manageable if you'd started early becomes overwhelming after months of delay. A decision that could have been simple now feels life-changing because of the time wasted overthinking it. Fear thrives on your inaction, feeding on the very time and opportunities you continue to give away. People often believe that they need courage before they can act, but in reality, courage is built through action. You don't wait for fear to disappear, you move in spite of it. The moment you take even a small step forward, fear begins to lose its grip. The longer you stay frozen, the stronger it gets and the more of your life it consumes. That's the real cost of fear, not just the anxiety in the moment, but the time, growth, and possibilities it silently robs from you. The direction of your life is determined less by your circumstances and more by the decisions you make in response to them. Every choice, big or small, creates a ripple that shapes your path. Deciding to wake up early or sleep in, deciding to confront a challenge or avoid it, deciding to focus or get distracted, all of these tiny moments add up to the trajectory of your future. People often underestimate the weight of daily decisions because they feel ordinary, but those ordinary decisions are what compound into extraordinary results. One choice rarely changes everything in an instant, but the consistent pattern of choices creates momentum that can either carry you closer to your goals or push you further away from them. What makes decisions so powerful is that they set direction. When you decide, you cut off other possibilities and give your energy to a single path. Even when you're uncertain, the act of deciding creates movement, and movement creates clarity. By contrast, indecision is its own decision, a choice to stay stagnant. Many people waste years sitting in the middle, hesitating, weighing options endlessly, never committing fully to one path. They think indecision is safe, but it actually robs them of progress. While they're stuck analyzing, others are moving forward, adjusting, learning, and improving along the way. Every major success begins with a single decision to act. The decision to start the business, to change your health, to learn a skill, to take a risk, none of those things happen by accident. They all start with a moment of clarity where someone said, "I'm doing this," and followed through. The outcome isn't guaranteed, but the commitment to act separates those who grow from those who remain stuck. Even failure becomes valuable when you've made a decision because it gives you data and direction. Indecision, on the other hand, leaves you with not but wasted time. There is also a mental shift that happens once you commit to a decision. Instead of scattering your energy across endless possibilities, you focus it. Your brain begins to filter opportunities, notice resources, and generate solutions that align with the path you've chosen. This focus is what makes progress possible. Without the anchor of a decision, your energy is diluted, and your attention drifts toward distractions and doubts. The simple act of deciding clears mental clutter and allows you to channel effort in one direction. Decisions also define identity. The choices you consistently make reflect the person you are becoming. If you decide to prioritize discipline over comfort, you shape yourself into someone who follows through. If you decide to avoid challenges, you shape yourself into someone who accepts mediocrity. Each decision is like a vote cast for the kind of person you want to be. Over time, the pattern of those votes becomes your character, and your character creates your destiny. The life you're living today is a reflection of the decisions you made yesterday, and the life you will live tomorrow depends on the decisions you make today. Consistency is the quiet force that outperforms bursts of intensity every time. Most people get caught up in the excitement of starting something new, fueled by motivation and energy, ready to give everything in the first few days. They push hard, expecting immediate results, but when progress feels slower than they imagined, their enthusiasm fades. Intensity may create sparks, but it is consistency that builds the fire. True progress is rarely about how much you do at once, but how often you show up and repeat the process, even when it's not exciting. Consistency has the power to transform effort into results because it compounds over time. A single workout won't change your body, but exercising regularly will. Writing for one day won't finish a book, but writing a little every day creates chapters. Saving money once won't make you financially secure, but setting aside even a small amount every month builds wealth. The magic isn't in one grand gesture, it's in the repetition. Each action builds upon the last, creating a momentum that grows stronger the longer you sustain it. One of the biggest reasons consistency beats intensity is sustainability. Intense effort requires bursts of motivation and willpower, which are temporary and unreliable. You can't depend on being motivated every single day. Consistency, however, doesn't rely on motivation. It relies on discipline and routine. When something becomes a regular part of your life, you do it regardless of how you feel. It becomes automatic, and that's when real transformation begins. You no longer debate whether to act, you simply act because it's what you do. Consistency also builds credibility with yourself. Every time you follow through, you reinforce the belief that you can be trusted to keep your word. This self-trust becomes the foundation of confidence. On the other hand, when you rely on intensity and quit after the initial burst, you send yourself the message that you can't be counted on. That erodes belief in your ability to achieve long-term goals. The people who succeed are not the ones who work the hardest for a few days. They're the ones who keep showing up long after the excitement fades. Another important aspect of consistency is that it removes the pressure of perfection. When you act regularly, each attempt doesn't carry the weight of being flawless because you know you'll get another chance tomorrow. This freedom allows you to improve gradually without the fear of failing once. Intensity often demands perfection. If you're going to push hard, it better work. But consistency understands that failure is part of the process, and small mistakes don't derail progress. Instead, they become lessons you integrate into your next attempt. Over time, consistency creates results so significant that people mistake them for sudden breakthroughs. They don't see the countless hours of steady effort, the daily habits, the small steps repeated over and over. They only see the transformation at the end and call it luck or talent. But the truth is, it's simply the power of persistence, the willingness to keep showing up, doing the work, and letting time amplify the results. Discipline is often misunderstood as a form of restriction, something that takes away freedom and makes life rigid, but in reality, discipline is what creates true freedom. Without discipline, people become slaves to their impulses, emotions, and momentary desires. They eat whatever they feel like, spend whenever they want, procrastinate whenever it's convenient, and eventually face the heavy cost of those choices. Freedom without structure always leads to chaos, while discipline builds the structure that allows freedom to exist in its purest form. When you practice discipline, you are not limiting yourself. You are shaping your life in a direction that aligns with your values, your goals, and your vision of who you want to become. Discipline is the bridge between goals and achievement. Every dream, no matter how big, requires a process of consistent, controlled effort, and that process is guided by discipline. You may have ambition, talent, or resources, but without the ability to discipline yourself, those qualities often go to waste. Discipline means doing what needs to be done, whether or not you feel like doing it. It means waking up early to train when you'd rather sleep, studying when you'd rather scroll, saving money when you'd rather spend, staying focused when distractions are everywhere. These daily acts of discipline compound over time and slowly transform into extraordinary results. What makes discipline powerful is that it removes the dependence on motivation. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes, influenced by mood, environment, and circumstances. Discipline, however, is constant. It doesn't ask how you feel, it demands action regardless. By practicing discipline, you build routines and habits that carry you through days when motivation is absent. This is why the most successful individuals are not the most motivated. They are the most disciplined. And they rely on systems, not feelings. And that reliability is what sets them apart. Discipline also builds character. Every time you resist the urge to give in to instant gratification, you strengthen your ability to control yourself. And self-control is one of the most valuable skills anyone can develop. It allows you to think long-term instead of reacting in the moment. It gives you the ability to stay calm under pressure, to make choices based on principles instead of impulses, to keep promises not just to others but to yourself. Over time, this builds an inner resilience that cannot be shaken easily because you have trained yourself to stay steady no matter the circumstances. Another overlooked benefit of discipline is that it simplifies life. When you are disciplined, you don't waste energy constantly deciding whether or not to act. You already know what needs to be done. This reduces decision fatigue and creates mental clarity. You free yourself from the cycle of excuses and hesitation, and instead, you follow a path that is already mapped out by your commitment. Ironically, this structure brings peace of mind because you no longer live in conflict between what you want to do and what you know you should do. Consistency is one of the most underestimated yet powerful forces in shaping a person's future. It is not the grand gestures or rare bursts of effort that create lasting change, but rather the small repeated actions that are carried out day after day. People often overestimate what they can achieve in a short amount of time and underestimate what they can achieve through consistent effort over years. Success in any area of life, whether health, career, relationships, or personal growth, is built upon the foundation of consistency. It is the daily habits, the regular practices, and the ongoing discipline that gradually accumulate into remarkable results. Consistency provides stability. When you commit to showing up every day, regardless of how you feel, you create a rhythm that builds momentum. Just as drops of water, when repeated over time, can carve valleys through stone, your repeated actions, no matter how small, begin to shape your reality. Many people give up not because their goals are impossible, but because they lack the patience to stay consistent long enough to see results. They start with enthusiasm, but when progress seems slow or invisible, they quit. What they fail to realize is that real change often works silently, building beneath the surface until one day the results become undeniable. One of the greatest advantages of consistency is that it builds trust. When you are consistent, others can rely on you, but more importantly, you can rely on yourself. You no longer break promises to yourself by starting and stopping endlessly. You begin to prove through your own actions that you are capable of following through. This self-trust is powerful because it strengthens confidence and builds integrity. Each time you follow through with consistency, you reinforce your identity as someone who keeps going, and that identity fuels future actions. Consistency. He also multiplies the effect of effort through compounding. Just like investing money regularly grows wealth over time, consistently investing effort grows skills, knowledge, and results. Reading 10 pages a day may not seem like much, but over the course of a year, it turns into several books. Exercising for 30 minutes a day might feel small, but over months, it transforms your body. Working on a business for 1 hour every evening may feel insignificant at first, but years of consistency can turn that small effort into a thriving enterprise. The compounding effect only works if consistency is present, because without it, the cycle is constantly broken and restarted. Another important aspect of consistency is that it creates habits. At first, staying consistent requires conscious effort, but with repetition, the effort becomes automatic. The brain begins to rewire itself, making the repeated actions easier and more natural. What was once a struggle becomes second nature. This is the secret of long-term success, not relying on willpower forever, but using consistency to transform actions into habits that run on autopilot. Once the right habits are in place, success no longer depends on extraordinary effort, but on the quiet persistence of daily routines. Adaptability is one of the most crucial qualities in a world that is constantly shifting and evolving. Life rarely unfolds in a straight, predictable line, and those who thrive are not necessarily the strongest or the most intelligent, but the ones most capable of adjusting to change. Adaptability is about remaining flexible in the face of uncertainty, being able to shift perspectives, and adjusting strategies when circumstances demand it. It is not about abandoning goals, but about finding new ways to reach them when old methods no longer work. In a world driven by rapid technological advancements, shifting economies, and evolving social dynamics, adaptability has become a core skill for survival and growth. The ability to adapt starts with mindset. When challenges appear, the rigid thinker sees them as barriers, while the adaptable thinker sees them as opportunities to learn and grow. Instead of resisting change or clinging to what used to work, adaptable individuals embrace uncertainty with curiosity. They ask what can be done differently, what lessons can be learned, and how to make progress despite obstacles. This mindset transforms setbacks into stepping stones and failures into valuable lessons that refine future actions. A flexible mind does not break under pressure. It bends, adjusts, and reshapes itself to meet new realities. Adaptability also relies heavily on emotional resilience. Change often brings discomfort, uncertainty, and even fear. But those who adapt well manage their emotions in the midst of chaos. They do not allow panic or frustration to cloud their judgment. Instead, they regulate their emotions, maintain composure, and make decisions rooted in clarity rather than reaction. This emotional balance allows them to remain steady when others may falter. By controlling their response to unpredictable circumstances, adaptable individuals turn moments of crisis into opportunities for reinvention. Another vital aspect of adaptability is resourcefulness. Life does not always present perfect conditions or unlimited resources. Those who adapt know how to make the most of what is available. They find creative ways to solve problems, think outside the box, and utilize unconventional approaches to move forward. Resourceful adaptability is often the difference between those who wait for conditions to improve and those who create progress despite the odds. By leveraging what is within their reach, adaptable individuals continuously open doors where others see walls. Adaptability is also about letting go of rigid attachments to comfort zones. Growth requires change, and change often demands stepping into the unfamiliar. Many people resist this because comfort feels safe, but the adaptable person understands that true progress lies outside of what is familiar. They are willing to explore new environments, adopt new technologies, learn new skills, and even reinvent themselves when necessary. This willingness to leave behind outdated methods, unproductive habits, and limiting beliefs is what allows them to continue evolving while others remain stuck. Over time, adaptability develops into a powerful advantage. In a fast-paced world where industries are transformed overnight and life circumstances can shift unexpectedly, being adaptable means never being left behind. It allows you to remain relevant, effective, and forward-moving even when the ground beneath you changes. Instead of being shaken by unpredictability, you learn to navigate it with confidence, turning what might appear as disruption into opportunity for growth and transformation. Discipline is the bridge between desire and achievement, the silent force that transforms dreams into reality. It is not a trait people are born with, but a skill cultivated through consistent effort, self-control, and the ability to prioritize long-term rewards over short-term temptations. While motivation may ignite the spark, discipline sustains the fire when the initial excitement fades. It is the ability to act according to what needs to be done, regardless of mood, circumstance, or distraction. Discipline requires making choices that are often uncomfortable, resisting the urge for instant gratification, and committing to actions that align with long-term goals. It is the practice of showing up every day, even when energy is low, when no one is watching, and when excuses seem more convenient than effort. The foundation of discipline lies in clarity. When a person knows exactly what they are working toward, every choice becomes either a step closer or a step further from that goal. Clarity transforms discipline from a struggle into a commitment because the individual understands the purpose behind their actions. Without clarity, discipline feels like restriction, but with purpose, it becomes a form of empowerment. Each act of discipline reinforces identity, shaping a person into someone who does not merely wish for success but works for it. Over time, disciplined actions accumulate into powerful momentum, creating a sense of pride and self-respect that no shortcut can replace. Discipline is also built on consistency. Progress is not made through occasional bursts of effort, but through steady, repeated actions carried out day after day. The small, seemingly insignificant decisions, waking up early, staying focused for another hour, making healthier choices, compound into results that may not be visible immediately, but become undeniable over time. This consistency requires patience, as discipline rarely brings instant results. It demands faith in the process, trusting that today's sacrifices are laying the foundation for tomorrow's achievements. The disciplined individual understands that the process itself is the reward, because through it, they develop strength, resilience, and character. Another essential element of discipline is self-mastery. To be disciplined is to govern oneself, to rise above impulses and emotions that would otherwise dictate actions. It means recognizing when the mind seeks comfort or avoidance and choosing the harder path that leads to growth. Discipline requires saying no to distractions, refusing to surrender to laziness, and detaching from excuses. It is the quiet victory of choosing purpose over pleasure, growth over comfort, and future over present indulgence. Each time self-mastery is exercised, the willpower grows stronger, making it easier to resist future temptations. Discipline also thrives in structure. Routines, habits, and systems serve as anchors that guide behavior without constant reliance on willpower. By creating an environment that supports focus and reduces distractions, discipline becomes less about resisting and more about aligning. The disciplined person does not rely solely on bursts of motivation, but creates conditions that make progress natural and effortless. Through this structure, discipline is transformed from a battle into a rhythm, a steady flow of intentional action that keeps life aligned with vision and purpose. Leadership is not about titles, positions, or the authority that comes with them. It is about influence, vision, and responsibility. True leadership begins with the ability to inspire others, to ignite a sense of purpose within people that drives them to act, not because they are forced to, but because they are motivated to. A leader sets the tone for the culture of any group, organization, or community. Their actions speak louder than their words, and the example they set becomes the standard for those who follow them. Leadership is about service more than power, about giving more than taking, and about ensuring the growth and success of others along with one's own. At its core, leadership is rooted in vision. A leader sees beyond the immediate and envisions what could be, not just what is. They have the courage to dream of possibilities that others might dismiss, and the determination to pursue those dreams even when the path is uncertain. But vision alone is not enough. Leadership requires the ability to communicate that vision in a way that others can believe in and commit to. Through clear communication and unwavering conviction, a leader turns abstract ideas into shared goals, and shared goals into collective action. Another defining trait of leadership is responsibility. A leader does not run from challenges or shift blame onto others. They accept responsibility not only for their own actions, but also for the outcomes of their team. They understand that leadership means being accountable, standing firm during adversity, and carrying the weight of difficult decisions. Responsibility also extends to recognizing the strengths and weaknesses of others, guiding them toward improvement, and creating an environment where individuals can thrive. The true measure of leadership is not how much one achieves personally, but how much one enables others to achieve. Leadership PE also demands courage. It is easy to follow the crowd, to avoid risk, and to remain silent in the face of difficulty. But a leader must rise above fear. They must be willing to make tough decisions, to stand alone if necessary, and to face criticism with grace. Courage in leadership means staying true to principles, even when it is unpopular or inconvenient. It means guiding others through uncertainty with confidence, not because all the answers are known, but because there is trust in the process and in the people being led. Emotional intelligence is another cornerstone of leadership. Leaders are not only thinkers, but also listeners who understand the emotions and perspectives of others. They know how to connect with people on a human level, to build trust, and to inspire loyalty. Emotional intelligence allows leaders to manage conflicts with wisdom, to foster collaboration rather than competition, and to create unity in diversity. A leader who understands people's needs, fears, and aspirations can guide them more effectively than one who relies only on logic and authority. Ultimately, leadership is about growth. A leader is always learning, adapting, and evolving, knowing that growth is essential to remain effective. They encourage growth in others, creating opportunities for development and recognizing potential where others may overlook it. Leadership is a continuous journey, not a destination, and those who embrace it understand that their role is not to stand above others but to walk beside them,